Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Mancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vaivaccha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So again a warm welcome to today's session. We've been blessed with Mataji's association and with her blessings, and with all your blessings I will attempt to share some verses from the Adi Lila chapter 1. So before we start, we'd also like to heartily welcome Dr. Rajni Mataji. She just recently got initiated just last week, and she has been blessed by His Holiness Chandramoni Maharaj with the name Vrajeshwari Nasi. So let us express our deepest prayers for her and heartiest congratulations on this wonderful and most auspicious event of her initiation to her and Ashish Prabhu, who's sitting at the back, good husband and supporter, and he himself is such a sincere student of the Gita, and now he's teaching classes online. So let us express our prayers and our congratulations by loudly chanting Hari Bol 3 times. Hari Bol! Hari Bol! Hari Bol! So as I shared with you that we have covered from verses 1 to 82, and in the 82nd verse, after expressing his appreciation for all the 6 different manifestations of God, of Krishna, he says, Bhakta Adi Krame Koilo Shabhara Bandhana. Bhakta Adi Krame Koilo Shabhara Bandhana. Shabhara Bandhana Sarva Subera Bhara. After worshipping all levels of devotees, he says this is worshipping them is the source of all good fortune. And Prabhupada writes one-liner purport, and in this he reveals that before we offer prayers to the Lord, who should we offer our prayers to? To the devotees. He says one should first offer prayers to his devotees and associates. And this is his conclusion on the first verse of the Mangalacharana. And now he says that I have offered my appreciation in a general way. Now I will offer my namaskar in a very specific way. So in text number 84, please repeat after me. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahodito, Nityananda Sahodito, Gaurdaya Pushpavanto, Gaurdaya Pushpavanto, Chitra Sando Tamonuto, Chitra Sando Tamonuto. Now in this verse, he is specifically offering his obeisances to whom? Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And he compares them to the sun and the moon. And he says that they have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda. And what is their purpose? To dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So this is a wonderful glorification of Sri Gaur Nitai, and he's telling us the reason that they've come. Just like they have arisen together like the sun and the moon together. And what have they come for? To dissipate the darkness of ignorance in our hearts. Vraj je vihare purve Krishna Balarama. Vraj je vihare purve Krishna Balarama. Koti sura chandra jini donharan jadhama. Koti surya chandra jini donharan jadhama. Shay dui jagat tera hayya sadaya. Shay dui jagat tera hayya sadaya. Gaura deshe purva shaile korila udaya. Gaura deshe purva shaile korila udaya. So Sri Krishna and Balaram, the personalities of Godhead. So where do they reside? They reside in Vrindavan. Vraje je purve. And they are brighter than millions of sun and moon together. And they have arisen over the eastern horizon of Gauradesh. Why? Being compassionate for the fallen state of the world. So imagine, when we're all steeped in darkness, and now from the spiritual world, Golok Vrindavan, who's coming, who's appearing? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, and Nityananda Prabhu, who is Lord Balaram. Right? And they come and they lighten up the darkness that is there in our hearts. Such a wonderful metaphor that he is using here. And he says that in 87, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Janhare Prakash Sarve Jagatananda. Janhare Prakash Sarve Jagatananda. Let's just say this again. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Janhare Prakash Sarve Jagatananda. Janhare Prakash Sarve Jagatananda. So their appearance, what has it done? Right, so their appearance has surcharged the world with happiness. Janhara Prakashe Sarva Jagata Ananda. And in the next verse he says that as the sun and moon drive away darkness by their appearance and reveal the nature of everything, these two brothers dissipate the darkness of ignorance, covering the living beings and enlighten them with knowledge of the absolute truth. So we'll sing these verses also. Surya Chandra Hare Jaiche Shobha Andhakara. Surya Chandra Hare Jaiche Shobha Andhakara. Astru Prakashiya Kore Dharma Re Prachara. Astru Prakashiya Kore Dharma Re Prachara. Hey Mata Dui Bhai Jivera Kyana. Hey Mata Dui Bhai Jivera Kyana. Kamuna Stori Koilo Tattva Vasudhana. Kamuna Stori Koilo Tattva Vasudhana. So what are they gifting us? They're removing our ignorance and they're gifting Tattva Vastu. Right? So they're revealing the knowledge of the absolute truth. And Who's that? Lord Shri Krishna. Ajnaniratamriranam kayyakaritava dharma artha kama moksha vanchadishava. Now he's going to explain what this darkness that he's talking about. So he says that this darkness is the cheating tendency. And where does this start from? You may think, okay, it starts at a very low platform. But he's talking, right from the entire purpose of human life, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. He says it starts right from there. And this is a very, very, it may seem like, what is he saying? It's such a strong statement. But he's going to explain why he's making this statement. So he says that, just like he does with all his statements, he refers to Shastra. Right? And he refers to the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Vyasadeva, he says, this is, this is in the melody of the Shat Goswami Ashtanga. How's that? Yes. You want to recite? Huh?
Please.
Recite. Mic.
I may not be able to complete
So no worry. Where did the mic go? Dharma projita ketavo annatra parmo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayo mulana Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Gride Kimbhavare Ishvara Sadhyavadaya Namudati Sushrushruvidansana. So in this verse, what does Vyasadeva say? He says that this great scripture,
What 32? 3032 card. 3032 card.
3032. So just one suggestion, every time you park, make sure you ask the guard. The guard is there, so if you just ask him, then you'll not go wrong. So it says the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled by whom? Mahamuni Vyasadeva, from the 4 original verses. Which are these 4 original verses? Have to discuss, right? So describes the most elevated and kind-hearted devotees and completely rejects the cheating ways of materially motivated religiosity. So what does it do? It completely rejects any type of materially motivated religion. This is what the Bhagavatam does. What is materially motivated? What does this mean?
Fruitive activity.
Yeah, so fruitive desires. That we worship the Lord for fruitive desires. And it says it propounds the highest principle of eternal religion, which can factually mitigate the threefold miseries of a living being and award the highest benediction of full prosperity and knowledge. And then he says something really beautiful. He says, those willing to hear the message of this scripture in a submissive attitude of service can at once capture the Supreme Lord in their hearts. So imagine, this is the real nature of God, that He's waiting to be captured. But we have to give up all materially motivated intentions and endeavors. And he says, therefore, there is no need for any scripture other than the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada writes a very extensive purport to this verse, and I will discuss the main points that Prabhupada makes paragraph by paragraph. So first of all, he says that this verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam, right, 1.1.2, right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. And he says that these words are spoken by Mahamuni Krite, that this Bhagavatam is compiled by the Lord's incarnation himself. He is Mahamuni. Why? Because he is the incarnation of Narayan. Shakti-vesh avatar. We discussed 3 types of avatars. So he falls in the category of Shakti-vesh avatar. And he says, therefore, he's not an ordinary person, but he's empowered by the Supreme Lord himself. And he compiled this beautiful Bhagavatam. And he says that there is distinction. What he's doing is, he's drawing a clear distinction right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam between reality or real religion and pretentious religion. So he says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a distinction between real religion and pretentious religion has been clearly made. And he explains that what is real dharma. So dharma, we think, is some type of faith or some religious practice. But Prabhupada explains, if you hear his lectures and you read his books, he explains that dharma is the real nature of a particular, say an object, right? Or a living entity. So like for example, he says the dharma of salt is what? It's saltiness. The dharma of sugar is its sweetness. And you can't have sugar that is bitter. That won't be sugar. So similarly he says that what is the dharma of the living entity?
Anything that cannot be separated.
Yes, so, and what is that? Our tendency to love and serve. And he says, so that is the real dharma. The real original dharma is to love and serve the Supreme Lord. And unless we learn that and we try and revive that original nature, then any other form of so-called dharma will not satisfy us, and nor will it remove our threefold miseries that we experience. And Prabhupada explains one by one in purport. He says that even in the path of religion, there are 3 paths: Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. And one by one he explains that why all the other processes except for the process of bhakti ultimately cannot give what the soul desires, and it cannot give the soul freedom from the threefold miseries. So the first thing he explains is that he says the path of fruitive work, karma kanda, it says it's decorated by religious ceremonies meant to elevate one's material condition. So by karma kanda, what happens? We perform many pious acts, and by which we get good karma. We accumulate good karma. We get promotion to heavenly planets. The level of material enjoyment increases, And so Prabhupada says that even though one may experience higher levels of happiness, but he says that they will remain in a temporary position because that happiness will be temporary. And ultimately, again we have to experience the distress of the threefold miseries. And Prabhupada says, even if one is put in the most perfect situation of material happiness, he cannot in that way become free from the pangs of birth, death, old age and disease. So he says, a materially happy person is therefore in need of the eternal relief that mundane religiosity in terms of fruitive work can never award. Then he says that the path of knowledge and the path of yoga, mystic powers, yoga marg, he says, are equally hazardous. So what does hazardous mean?
Dangerous.
Yes, dangerous, risky. Because until the soul is able to awaken its real nature, any other thing is dangerous and risky for our souls. So he says that when someone, an empiric philosopher, right, when they pursue the path of knowledge, they labor so much. They endeavor most laboriously, he says in the purport, for many, many births and mental speculation, different types of tapasya. And then we're not sure where we'll end up. And even if they are able to realize the impersonal Brahman, right, ultimately they also have to come down. So it is liberation, but liberation that is also has a time period. It has an extensive time period. But eventually, the soul again has to come down because it doesn't have the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. It's not engaged in the loving service of the Lord. So Prabhupada says, then ultimately they become lonely. So they come down again. And he says, similarly, the path of yoga. And then he gives this amazing example, like all these mystic powers that the yogis can get. So he says, there's one German. He gives the example of a German, a person from Germany. He says, nowadays, material advancement. There's so much material you can fly in the sky, go on these. So much technology is there. So what's the use of just levitating and doing all this mystic yoga to get all these powers of levitation and producing or walking on fire? Well, modern technology gives all these abilities. So he says, the German. He says this German person. He says, this is all available through now modern technology. So if you're coming to India, seek real spirituality. Why seek all these mystic powers and do all this tapasya when this modern gadgets and equipment can give you? And then Prabhupada says, mystic powers can make a yogi materially powerful and thus give temporary relief from the miseries of birth, death, old age and disease, as other material sciences can also do. But such mystic powers can never be a permanent source of relief from these miseries. So he's constantly hammering this point that all these other options, they are ultimately not helpful for us. These are all temporary measures and cannot give the soul what it really requires. And therefore, according to the Bhagavad school, this path of religiosity is also a method of cheating its followers. And then he says, even the worship of all the devtas and all the demigods, is still more hazardous. And he says, and uncertain than the above mentioned processes of Karma Kand and Gyan Kand. So none of these, he says, are, and then he says the Bhagavatam describes the highest religious form. And what is that? Reinstatement of the living entity in his original position of transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord, which is free from the infection of desires for sense gratification, fruitive work, and the culture of knowledge, with the aim of merging into the absolute truth to become one with the Supreme Lord. So free from all these infections. And Prabhupada, right in the beginning, we read when we started the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, what is the goal? He says, uncontaminated devotional service. And this is what the Bhagavatam teaches. And this is what Sri Gaur Nitai have come to help us dissipate all these dark tendencies which are entrapping us in this world, to free us from this darkness so that we can follow real dharma. I remember, as a student in college, when I first started studying this around 1993, and one of the things that what really struck me about this philosophy was, I think this mic is. One of the things that really struck me is this strong assertion, the Bhagavatam makes, that Save Pumsam Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Radhokshaja Ahituki Apratihata Yayatma Suprasiddhati. And this verse, just struck me like anything. That if you really want to be satisfied, Yayatma Suprasiddhati. We all want, peace and satisfaction and joy, right? And not just, temporary. But we want to always feel peaceful and joyful. And when I read this verse, it says, there's no other way. Ahituki apratihata. Bhakti. To whom? To the Supreme Lord. Adhokshaja. Who's beyond these material senses. And I thought, wow, what a definition of religion. It's not Hindu religion. It says that religion is highest. That can, teach, or that can bring us to the platform of unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord. What an amazing definition of religion. So when you contemplate this kind of definition, you realize what the depth of our scriptures is. It's not saying you need to be a Hindu, you need to be a Christian, you need to be a Muslim. But no, the highest religion is what? That teaches. That's what Prabhupada would always say. Okay, what does your philosophy teach? This is what this philosophy is teaching. Unmotivated, uninterrupted love for God. It's such so pure and so elevated, and just definition is so amazing. I want to talk about the experience. So this is something that we all need to keep in the forefront. As we practice and read Prabhupada's books, we will never forget this. He is constantly reminding us, this is the goal. Unmotivated devotional service. No other desire. Anya abhilashita shunyam. And especially free from what? The desire for Gyan and karma. Even sometimes we come to bhakti, we get into this Gyan mode. So we need this knowledge. But ultimately this knowledge is for what? If we take this knowledge in the right spirit, right, it is to completely offer our hearts, not to become a Gyani or to make a show of our learning, to show how many verses we know. No, this is to become pure in heart and get rid of all these materialistic tendencies that we have, all the subtle desires of puja, labh and pratishtha. So this is the goal. In the next verse, dharma moksha vancha kaitava pradhana. Dharma moksha vancha kaitava pradhana. Jaha hote Krishna bhakti hoy antardhana. Jaha hote Krishna bhakti hoy antardhana. This is again a very, very strong statement. He says, the foremost process of cheating is to desire to achieve liberation by merging into the Supreme. So although this is a bona fide realization that the impersonal Brahma is also one of the Lord's manifestation. Right? But what does it do? The problem with this is that for a long and indefinite time, we will lose the opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord. And he says there's nothing that can be worse than this. And Prabhupada writes that, Prabhupada even goes even stronger. He says, this is the subtlest type of atheism. You see, Prabhupada, as soon as such atheism disguised in the dress of liberation is encouraged, one becomes completely unable to traverse the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's why the Bhagavatam in the next verse says the prefix pra, right, in projita kaitava, this indicates that even the desire for liberation is completely rejected. And now he gives a beautiful definition. He says, Krishna bhakti rabhadika jato shab shubha karma. Krishna bhakti rabhadika jato shubha karma. Krishna bhakti rabhadika jato shubha karma. Krishna bhakti rabhadika jato shubha karma. Sheha aka jivira agyana tamo dharma. All kinds of activities, both auspicious and inauspicious. Jato shubh ashubha karma. Right? If they are a badhaka, if they are an obstacle or detrimental to Krishna bhakti, then one should understand that these are actions of the darkness of ignorance. They are Jivera Agyana Tamo Dharma. clear distinction. Anything that is against the principles of bhakti, they are to be considered what? Yes. Dark. Right? So whether they are auspicious, they may seem externally very auspicious, great charity being done, great tapasya being done, great meditation being done. Right? But if they're against the principles of the bhakti, it's remaining in the dark. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says, the poetical comparison of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda to the sun and moon is very significant. Why? Because
Second mic, Prabhuji, on your left. Yes. Just switch this off.
No, still.
oh, it was on.
Okay, it's still on.
No, it was off.
But there's a voice coming.
Oh, there's a noise coming. Just get the battery from now in the drawer. These batteries run out really fast. We need to get some better batteries.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe the wire.
That's what's good.
Try this maybe, yes.
So Prabhupada writes that living entities must get free from these superfluous coverings and fully engage in Krishna consciousness. The purpose of the appearance of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda is to dispel the darkness of the soul. He says, before their appearance, all these superfluous activities of the living entities were covering Krishna consciousness. But after the appearance of these two brothers, people's hearts are becoming cleansed and they are again becoming situated in the real position of Krishna consciousness. Janhara prasade tamo hoye nash. Janhara prasade tamo hoye nash. Tamo nash kori kore tattvera prakash. Tamo nash kori kore tattvera prakash. Tattva vastu Krishna Krishna bhakti prema rupa. Tattva vastu Krishna Krishna bhakti prema rupa. Nama sankirtan shobha ananda swarupa. Nama sankirtan shobha ananda swarupa. So by their mercy, Janhara Prasad, this darkness is being dispelled. And the truth is being brought to light. And what is being revealed? Tattva Vastu Krishna. Krishna Bhakti Prema Rupa. So Prabhupada says the absolute truth is Sri Krishna. And loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through what? Nama Sankirtana Shobha Ananda Swarupa. So what is the process? This Nama Sankirtan. Surya Chandra Bahirera Tamashe Vinashe. Surya Chandra Bahirera Tamashe Vinashe. Bahi Vastu Khata Pate Adishe Prakashe. Bahi Vastu Khata Pate Adishe Prakashe. Bhai hridayera shari andhakara. Dui bhai hridayera shari andhakara. Dui bhagavat sange karna sakshakara. Dui bhagavat sange karna sakshakara. Eka bhagavat bado bhagavat shastra. Eka bhagavat bado bhagavat shastra. Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. Ara Bhagavata Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. Dui Bhagavata rasa. Dui bhagavat jana diya bhakti rasa. Tanhar hridoye tanra prema hoye bhasa. Tanhar hridoye tanra prema hoye bhasa. Ekadbhuta sama kale tonhar prakasha. Ekadbhuta sama kale tonhar prakasha. Adbhut chitta kumara sama kare nasha. Adbhut chitta kumara sama nasha. So just like the sun and the moon, as they dissipate the darkness of the external world and reveal the material objects like different, he says, like pots and plates. Similarly, these two brothers, these divine personalities, the Supreme Lord themselves, what do they do? How do they dissipate this darkness? They bless us with the association of the two Bhagavats. One is the book Bhagavat and one is the person Bhagavat. So when, suppose, we are blessed with the book Bhagavat, so what is the chance that will lead to the person Bhagavat? Good chance or bad chance? Very strong chance. Because this is the power of the Bhagavat. And if you meet a person Bhagavat, he's a living Bhagavat himself. So he's not going to preach anything except the Bhagavat. So this is the special mercy of Sri Gaur Nitai, that they connect us to either the person Bhagavat or the book Bhagavat. And what will the Bhagavatam give us? What we just discussed, what does the Bhagavatam do? Yes, unmotivated. It throws out every ill-motivated process of even dharma. What to talk about, materialism. Just pure substance of the love of God. And when we associate with these two type of Bhagavats, then what happens? Tanhara hridaya tanra prema hoye vas. So we get the bhakti ras, which ultimately leads to the experience of pure love. And it's so wonderful, he says. The first wonder is that they both appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of our heart. Sri Gaur Nitai. And he says, Ei Chandra Surya Dui Parama Sadaya. 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 Jagatera Bhagya Gaure Gauri Lautaya. Jagatera Bhagya Gaure Gauri Lautaya. Jagatera Bhagya Gaura Gauri Lautaya. Jagatera Bhagya Gaura Gauri Lautaya. Jai Dui Prabhura Kori Charone Vandana. Jai Dui Prabhura Kori Charone Vandana. Chanda hoite Vignana Shabishta Purana. Java hoite Vignana Shabishta Purana. Jai Dui Shloke Kola Mangala Vandana. Jai Dui Shloke Kola Mangala Vandana. Titya Shloke Artha Suno Sarvajana. Titya Shloke Artha Suno Sarvajana. he says that these two, sun and the moon, they are so very kind, sadaya. They're supremely merciful. And they have appeared for the good fortune of everyone. And where have they appeared? On the eastern horizon of Bengal. And he prays to them. He says, let us therefore worship. She dui prabhura, kori charone banda. And when we do that, jaha hoite vignonas, abhishta pura. Whatever obstacles are there, they will be removed. So we will end here today. There are a few more verses, but we will stop here. Because I have to go to the temple. There's another class at 7 o'clock today. So if you have any quick questions, another 5 minutes. Anything you'd like to share? Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, on shlok number 92, it is being mentioned that the expectation of getting merged into God is also an astika. I just want to ask that, is it possible to even get merged there? What we have heard is that even if you go to Golok we will be serving to Lord.
No, this is a different type of liberation. So, the merging into the impersonal Brahman, that is also that is a bona fide spiritual, you could say, liberation. But when we compare it from the perspective of pure devotion, that's also a type of cheating. Why? Because we lose the opportunity. What the soul is actually hankering, we're going to deny the soul for millions and billions of years. Yes, they'll be free from all material anxiety, right, for this long period of time. But ultimately again, they have to come back. Yes, that period is, it's unbelievably extensive. We don't know how long that will be. But the fact is that in that time, we're going to lose the time. So for a devotee, this is a pure devotee who's speaking with such deep realization. And he's saying, why do you want to lose this opportunity? So even though it is a bona fide spiritual, you could say, liberation, but why do you want to go for that? And because the Bhagavatam discourages, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, pure Bhagavat, he goes even one step more. And Prabhupada even goes further. This is, he calls it, subtlest type of atheism. So one stroke after another, 3 strikes. First the Bhagavatam stroke, then his shloka, and then Srila Prabhupada in the purport. Liberation not for devotees.
And one more is stroke number 93 after that, if you have time, if time permits, if you can explain that further.
So that pra means projita, right? Dharma projita kaitava. Projita means to completely reject. Kaitava means any type of cheating religion. So the Bhagavatam rejects even what goes on in the name of dharma. But if it is not aligned with pure unmotivated devotional service, then for the Bhagavatam says it's kaitava. So it should be rejected. The Bhagavatam rejects that. The projita, that means completely. Yes. Yes, Mati.
Prabhuji, I have a question from the last class. I was not present. I have heard the recording.
Can we do that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Yes,
Let's do a quick appreciation for one point Mataji made
Yes.
connected to today's class.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Krishna, Mataji Dandavat Pranams, Hare Krishna Prabhu. So I formed a connection, and I might be wrong also, between the two sessions that we had today. So you mentioned that our children should know why we have this best process and best understanding of the absolute truth. And today's session was also kind of clarifying what that best process really means. So I just wanted to thank both of you. And we should keep asking ourselves and our children also, what is it that you love about bhakti? This process, so that makes it more real and practical.
So we learn from the Bhagavatam that Krishna can be realized in 3 different levels. One is Brahman, which is his bodily effulgence, then the Paramatma, and then Swayam Bhagavan as the supreme person or the supreme personality of Godhead. So these are all 3 bona fide realizations of God. Right? But from the perspective of pure devotion, the Bhagavad, it encourages just pure devotion to the Supreme Lord, because ultimately that only can satisfy the self. So, merging into the Supreme Brahman ultimately not satisfy the soul. Having all these yogi powers and realizing the Paramatma will not completely satisfy the soul. But why it will not satisfy? Because the soul's nature is to love and serve. So unless it is engaged in its real dharma, there will always be dissatisfaction. And Gaur-Nita they've come to give us the real, it'll be shared in the last few verses. They've come to give us real peace and joy. The real ambassadors of peace and joy in this world. Okay, last. Yes.
Thank you, Mataji, for sharing your realization, and thank you, Prabhuji, for giving the details of this process of bhakti. So my question is, when we listen to these verses and we try to understand these, and we try to follow the same, so the natural tendency is that whenever we see someone else following this, so it feels that they are not doing right. So when that kind of thinking is coming in our mind, or we see that, and we try to find we see some fault in others. So what should we do with that in that case? Because that naturally comes because we are listening.
So we are compassionate with others, and we live in this world, age of Kali, and it's natural in one sense that people will have these tendencies. So we shouldn't develop hatred for that, but we should be compassionate, and by practicing ourselves, and by being contemplative, and by examining our own situation and our own desires, we should spend more energy in that, in examining ourselves, because we ourselves are full of so many of these tendencies. And when we focus on ourselves, then we will discover, like, I remember one time, in my initial years, one devotee gave the example. He says, like, the process of bhakti is like trying to clean a piece of coal. So more you clean the coal, more, yes, it's like, more, darkness seems to come out. So we focus on ourselves, and we are compassionate with others, and we try to help them by gradually helping them understand the real knowledge of the Bhagavatam. So we can't like rally so strongly from the pulpit and say, okay, now I know better, I am a Bhagavatam man. No, but no, we have to do with compassion, with humility. We have to present this wonderful knowledge to them.
Mostly we do that way, but sometimes if we are doing it, we are not saying that directly, we are not pointing fingers, and we try to talk to someone and tell them about it.
Yes.
But they have their mindset fixed, and then it's really difficult for us to inspire or convince them.
Yeah, it takes time.
It takes time, right?
So we, give them prasadam, engage them at kirtan, welcome them, participate in kirtan. Keep it simple. Don't get into heavy philosophy, especially with people who are very much, attracted to the impersonal feature of the Lord and who've been practicing that for a long time. It's difficult initially to absorb this. So keep it light. Unless you see the person's really receptive to understand this knowledge and very curious to understand, then we give them. Otherwise, gradually befriend, make them come to the kirtan, listen, and gradually let the process do its work.
And then that person says that mind is not distract for other persons.
Yeah, so for ourselves, we should focus. We shouldn't get too much into their philosophy. That also we have to be careful. Right? Listening to too much impersonal philosophy, hoy sarvanash. So, Mayavadi bhashya sunne hoy sarvanash. So we have to be careful. So Mataji, any concluding words you want to say? We are done now. So.
Thank you so much. For some of you who have appreciated what I said, I just actually wanted to add and also ask you, the merging is not so good or so high because we kind of lose our identity. I was told that merging in the Supreme Lord's brightness, it is actually His bodily brightness where we merge, is that we have no activity, which also leads us not to serve the Lord. We are just like hanging there. So then finally there is no devotional service, which is why we fall again. Is that right? Yes. So merging is not so much appreciated, neither should we target it as our main goal. Because like the realization comes in 3 stages, like Prabhu mentioned, then we have to actually try to go to the Bhagwan conception. But then again, we should not target liberation for ourselves, because only Krishna can judge where we are, or we deserve the liberation also. It is not that easy, you see. To be the other question actually I wanted to ask was, when Prabhu mentioned uncontaminated, to that stage it is very, very difficult to be uncontaminatedly doing the devotional service. It is not easy. Not everyone. Srila Prabhupada also mentioned, and it is mentioned, from millions who try, millions will be like on first step. From millions, hundreds will be on second step or something like that. And finally only one soul will be successful. So you can imagine how difficult it is. It's not like a game, that you become uncontaminated and you are sure to get liberation. That is way far behind. We are talking of something like Srila Prabhupada. It's not easy. That's all my conclusion that I would like to give. And please remember not to criticize anyone. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada was very much against it. He said, check yourself first. Are you much better than him? Are you doing more service than he is? That would lead us to the realization that we are not in the place to judge anyone. Maybe biggest mistake that the devotees did. The disciples in the beginning, someone tried to kill him also. You might have heard his Leela. He forgave. He forgave. He never used to judge and say, okay. Once one devotee was kicked out, before he knew, he was very angry. He said, that devotee, I noticed, had a plus point than you have. Don't have the right to kick him. Call him back. So these were his orders, these were his disciplinary activities which he did. In order to teach the other devotee, he would discipline the friend and show him how to go right. He was very kind, very, very compassionate towards his devotees. And he, of course, understood. He used to give the example of matka. You have to mold it. It takes a long time. If the matka is already done, you will break it if you get it burned. So that was his example, I think, which is very clear to us all. How many years we have been living in material world? It cannot in one day, 1 hour we become. That is all. So keep trying. Please keep trying.
So let us express our deep gratitude to Mataji by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And thank you all so much. You all have been very patiently